Very good afternoon to all of you. In the last lecture, we have discussed about the uh, very introductory part of the this subject, disaster preparedness and planning. And in that lecture, we have discussed about the importance of this subject means why disaster preparedness and planning is very important for a civil engineer. And we have seen the engineering aspect for this subject and what are the role we will play as an engineer or as a civil engineering in this subject matter. And we have also discussed about the different kind of disasters. Either it may be man-made disaster or natural disasters. And also one more point was focused that actually our state is very prone to flood condition and earthquake scenario. So we will more focus on the flood condition and flood disasters and the earthquake disasters, apart from the other disasters like cyclonic waves. And we will see the now in this lecture we will see the what are the concept behind the disaster preparedness and its planning. So it is very important to know the concept behind the disaster preparedness and planning. And also we have discussed in the last lecture that Bihar is the only state in Asia, which has developed its own disaster roadmap. So it is a very good opportunity to learn this type of subject matter. So now come to this lecture. We will see the what is the basically what what are the basics concepts associated with this subject matter. So in this section basically we will deal with the concept associated with the disasters preparedness and its planning. Okay. So the concept is like a disaster concept is lying in the definition of the disaster itself. So we can define the disaster. A disaster is a sudden मीन्स अचानक calamitous जो कि नुकसानदेह है event means basically the disaster is an event which is a sudden calamitous that seriously disrupts or affects the functioning of community or society. So see here, here we can say we can see that a disaster is an such type of event where its affect or disrupts our major functioning part of the societies and community, and its causes human, materials, economic and environmental losses that exceed the community's or society ability to deal effectively with difficulty using its own resources. Okay, to see how much its tragedy created in our life, because after disasters we are getting suffering like human suffering, materials, economics and environmental losses which are surpassing the society's ability to deal effectively with the difficulty whatever resources we have. So this is the basic concept behind the disaster preparedness and planning subject. So we have to understand this concept so that we can utilize our knowledge, our information to the preparedness and planning part. Okay. I think it's. I think the concept part is done with all of you. See, it's clearly written here. Disaster is a sudden calamitous event that seriously affect the functioning of a community or a community or a society. Means it is affecting the functioning of community or society. Functioning means whatever daily की चीजें जो हम यूज करते हैं, whatever the things we are using in our daily life, means our life is moving very smoothly manner. So that part will be affected in case of disasters, and its causes human loss, material loss, economic loss, and environmental loss. Okay. Okay. So and it's exceed the society ability to deal effectively with the difficulty using its own resources. Okay, means whatever resources we have to use only that own resources to get rid out of the difficulties created by the disasters. So मीन्स अगर इसको हम ऐसे बोले कि हमारे पास जो रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल हैं उसी रिसोर्सेज का यूज करके हमें उस डिजास्टर से बाहर निकलना है जो प्रॉब्लम हमें डिजास्टर के द्वारा क्रिएट हुए हैं. Okay, so now come to the one by one concept behind the disasters, its preparedness and planning. The first come to the disaster. We have already seen the what is the disaster and what is the concept behind this. So basically, in the first lecture, we have also discussed about that. Disaster is basically composed of two terms: vulnerability and hazard. And hazard means कि जिससे खतरा है वो हजार्ड है. वल्नरेबिलिटी मीन्स जिसको खतरा है, मतलब जिसको नुकसान हो सकता है. These two terms make a sense of disasters. Means it's also depending on the how much risk we are getting. Okay, then we will define the disaster. In the next class, we will see each and every terminology with an example. So right now we are just dealing with the concept of the disaster preparedness and planning. So basically, when disaster will occur, a disaster occurs when a hazard impacts on vulnerable people. Means we have in the first class we have also given one example, like suppose somebody is riding his or her bike, but he or she is not using the helmet. It means when accident will occur, the person which is riding the bike will get affected. Means that person is vulnerable, more vulnerable to get accident. Okay, so in this way we can understand that disaster is basically when occurs when basically hazard impact on vulnerable people. मतलब जो vulnerable है, जिसको खतरा हो सकता है, ठीक है, अगर वो खतरा से इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है, it means there will be a disasters. Okay. And again, the combination of hazard, vulnerability, and inability to reduce the potential negative consequences of the risk results in disaster. So our main aim is like that. As already we are knowing that hazard and vulnerability may create a disasters. So our role is that somehow we have to reduce the consequences of the risk resulting in disasters. Means जो खतरा जिसको है उसको हमें बचाना है ताकि डिजास्टर का रूप वो ना ले सके. Okay, so this is the basic concept behind the disasters. Now come to the concept associated with the disaster preparedness. So basically disaster preparedness means two major taken to prepare for and reduce the effects of disasters. Means somehow we have to reduce the effects of disaster by preparing ourselves, or by preparing our society, our village, our nation, or whatever so called, means each and every entity associated with this preparedness program, we have to prepare them, for reducing the effects of disaster. This is the main concept associated with the disaster preparedness. And in this here, the main function associated with the disaster preparedness is that, first, to predict and where possible prevent disasters. Means there are so many agencies like NGO, and in foreign, in United States there are so many agencies which only work for the disasters program, means disaster prevention, disaster mitigation, disaster management. So our main aim is that, our main focus is on, we have to predict कि कहाँ पे डिजास्टर हमारा हो सकता है, with previous studies. So we have to predict, and जहाँ पे possible होगा we prevent disasters. Means how we can prevent disasters, when the vulnerable things can be removed on the site of the disasters. Okay, because we are knowing that when vulnerable person or vulnerable things are available on the place and hazard will come, then disaster can happen. But when but at the time of but at the time of hazard, we are able to we are able to remove the vulnerable things, so we can easily mitigate the hazard. Means we can easily mitigate the disasters which causes hazard. Okay, so our main function is to predict, and where possible prevent the disasters to happen, the disasters, and again mitigate their impact on vulnerable population. I mean, we have already covered this point. And again we have to respond to and effectively deal with the cope, means we have to deal with the difficult situation with their consequences. So our main aim for disaster preparedness is that somehow we have to prevent the disasters by removing the vulnerable population, vulnerable things, and we have to respond in effective manner to deal with their problems, whatever the consequences at the site at the time of disasters. Okay, and because disaster prepared we have already done, so disaster planning is a very important part, because good planning a good planning produces effective emergency operations and improves overall preparedness. Okay, whatever we have prepared for the disaster mitigation program, but we are not planning in a very good manner, then we cannot effectively reduce the our preparedness program. So to improve the overall preparedness program, we need to go for a good planning. Means we need to go for good disaster planning. Otherwise we cannot save humanity in a very well manner. So disasters may be natural, or it may be a man-made. Okay, and it can happen at any time. Okay, so we have to prepare for this. The disasters can come at any time, and our planning and practicing for these events is a main factor for a favorable response. Until unless we are not practicing the preparedness program, then we cannot save the society, or we cannot mitigate the disaster things. So disaster planning is basically associated with the practice practice of whatever we have planned, and good disaster planning. Means there are two terms associated with the disaster planning. Is first is the good planning, and second is the good practice, means regular practice. practice practice regularly, so that we can effectively utilize this preparedness program, our planning at the time of disasters. And basically the basic structure for disaster planning includes four terms. One is the mitigation program, second is the preparedness, third is the response, and fourth is the recovery. Okay, this all terminology we will see in the next class in a very in a very elaborated way. And as after getting all these responses with good proper planning, better preparedness program, then we can say preparedness builds capabilities to manage the impact of hazards. If we have a good preparedness plan, okay, so we will be so much capable to manage the whatever hazards impact will occur on our society. Okay, and this is a very good report just read the last year's Stanley et al. Stanley E. There is an author called Stanley E. et al. Means there are so many authors associated with this report. This is basically a report which was available on internet after 2020, and it is given a very historical manner after the attack on World Trade Center in 2001. It was a meeting held in USA, and it was decided that we need to work on in a rigorously we need to work on in a rigorous manner to improve in disaster preparedness plan. Okay, in a rigorous manner, they got the chance to make a resilient society with a better preparedness and its planning, so that we can save our public health area, healthcare professional in the planning process. Means so that we can save our society in a very well manner. For that, in that meeting, it was decided that when we want the we want the disaster resilient society. So it is a very important to include public health and healthcare professionals in the planning process, so that we can create a disaster resilient society. And after that, all the local bodies, state and national level authorities was taken care by the government involvement only. So this was a very good report. I will share this report to you in details. But the main conclusion is that when the disasters like terrorist attack was happened in 2001, after that it was decided that we need to include the all the stakeholders of the society, means doctors, engineers, at any level, विलेज लेवल पे जो आपका जो बॉडी है, एक ऑथोरिटी है, we need to utilize all the professionals for the different section to create a disaster resilient society. And this was the concept for the disaster risk reduction map. And this was this concept was also utilized in our Bihar state disaster road map, DRR road map. We will see this map will be shared to you so that we can get a better picture to understand the disaster preparedness and planning. So this is the concept which was used to prepare this subject of disaster preparedness and planning. So thank you so much for a nice hearing.